This video is brought to you by Harold Sack, who gave me a massive 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon. Mishra versus Scion of Urza, Ezuri and Adeline. Yeah, decent hand for us. We have pretty much everything we need there to start us off. Could just as easily empty our hand, but we'll have to try and rely on some decent draws. And round to our turn, we draw into Xander's Lounge, so yeah. Doesn't matter if we get down Myriad Landscape or Xander's Lounge first, we'll just play that in tapped. Not going to be doing anything for the first few turns, I wouldn't have thought. We see a Stoneforge Mystic from the mono white player who tutors up a Mace of the Valiant. And this turn we draw into Saheeli Sublime Artificer, so probably, yeah, maybe not a good idea to get that down into the Stoneforge Mystic. We'll have to see if it's equipped up first. So we'll take advantage and get down the Myriad Landscape tapped here, so that we can play Talisman into our Saheeli. Maybe we can go on Offer You Can't Refuse onto the Mace, but I wouldn't mind Adeline becoming a big threat before us. Means that our opponents are going to point their removal over there. As you would expect, Adeline comes into play on turn 3, noteworthy that there is a Demolition Field in play for the mono white player as well. And Adeline will trigger from any creature of theirs swinging in, so the Stoneforge Mystic going to turn in sideways here. The elf player yet to get down an elf, it's Ronas' Monument first. A Cultivate from the Scion of Urza. Okay, and we draw into another Talisman, so I'm just wondering if we should just look at cracking the Myriad Landscape and just hope that the Scion of Urza is going to wipe the board against Adeline. Failing that, we could get down 2 Talismans this turn. Obviously not casting them into the Saheeli, because it's not likely Saheeli will survive against all this aggression from the Adeline player. So let's crack the Polluted Delta for a dual land, and then we'll play out the Rakdos Talisman first. Then we can play the Talisman of Creativity and hold up blue mana for the An Offer You Can't Refuse. The white player has an Emeria the Sky Ruin in play now, so 5 lands away from that being active. And now it's a Stoneforge Masterwork, which is, yeah, going to be a massive buff for the Adeline. Currently have 4 humans in play, and obviously we'll have 3 more once it attacks in. So that has to be an Offer You Can't Refuse on that, I think. Don't think we can rely on the green player to wipe the board anytime soon, and Scion of the Ur-Dragon doesn't necessarily have too many board wipes in it. Instead, seeing Sword of the Animist, and that can be played and equipped here, so that will put them towards the Emeria the Sky Ruin being online much sooner. At least they're using the 2 treasure tokens straight away, but it's well invested at this point. Probably just directed the Adeline straight in towards us. Certainly did, so swinging in at us with that. The 3 tokens go in at Scion the Ur-Dragon, the Stoneforge Mystic at the Ezuri, and then we each get a token from Adeline's trigger. The first elf is a Canopy Tactician for the green player. Noteworthy that the Adeline is now a 9/5 with Vigilance. Lightning Greaves for the Wooburg player, followed by a Rampant Growth. So may be able to play out and swing in with Scion of the Ur-Dragon next turn. Okay, we draw into a mountain. So I think the best use of our mana is going to be just playing out the Mishra here. That will hopefully hold the Adeline back, because I don't suppose I'm above trading for the Adeline, although they'll easily be able to replay it again. Going to make a 4/4 copy of the Talisman, but yeah, nothing really to do with the mana, unfortunately. Not much point swinging in towards Adeline, so I'll just hold it back and show my other 2 opponents who I could swing in at that I'm not looking at them at all. It's likely that if Adeline swings in towards us here, we are going to have to block it. We can just hope that we don't see any kind of evasion from our opponent yet. The Stoneforge Mystic cheats out the Mace of the Valiant, and equipping that onto the Adeline, so still a 9/5 at the moment, but it is about to attack in. So now swinging in at Scion of the Ur-Dragon, and all the 1/1 tokens swinging at the elf player. So those creatures entering does put charge counters on the Mace, and that puts the Adeline up to a 15/8. So yeah, if the Ur-Dragon has a board wipe, then they'll be encouraged to use it here. Although I dare say that they were thinking about doing that anyway. Kenrith's Transformation now going on to the Adeline. This will still be the commander, and it's still a 7/7 thanks to the equipment. So the Scion of the Ur-Dragon player still at risk of commander damage. They plummeted all the way down to 19 as well. Then using an Elvish Champion to give all the elves Forest Walk and +1/+1. No forests under the control of the dragon player yet. And after that we see the Heedless one. So if Scion does go for a board wipe here, I dare say we might see a concession from the elf player. They've only got 2 cards in hand over there. Seeing the first dragon, it is Ryusei the Falling Star. When it dies, it deals 5 damage to each creature without flying, so yeah, no sack outlet for them unfortunately, but that should steer the Adeline away from them. And that is a Thran Dynamo for us, so I was going to look at playing out Tezzeret's Gatebreaker here, but maybe it's just Thran Dynamo into Tezzeret Gatebreaker and we'll just hold off on the Saheeli, seeing as how we're up against flyers and go wide strategies anyway. So it's the Dynamo and Tezzeret's Gatebreaker into play, and that obviously triggers. And of those, we've got a choice between Coveted Jewel and the Cursed Mirror. I think we take the Jewel in this instance. Get out a Wooded Foothills so that we can make a tap land, and we will pass through to the beginning of combat, which will trigger the Mishra, and we'll just go for the Tezzeret's Gatebreaker here. Okay, and we do manage to see a Skull Clamp there, would be really good, but I think maybe Mana Drain against some kind of big buff or evasion on the Adeline would be an intelligent thing to keep. Yeah, it's a shame that we've got so many good cards that we're seeing there, but we'll shuffle everything around again with the fetch, because we've got Blasphemous Act and Wheel of Fortune going on the bottom there. Intelligent play is the Mana Drain, I think. Noteworthy that our opponents do know that we've got Coveted Jewel and Mana Drain in our hand now, because we do have to reveal those, of course. So now we see a Banishing Light. Is that going to go on something of ours? No, it isn't just going to go on the Kenrith's transformation, so they are going to unlock the power and toughness on their Adeline again. That jumps back up to a 14-8 with Vigilance. Then after that it is Tolkasia's Welcome, I think you say it. Only triggers once a turn and they'll draw a card during each of their combats basically. We'll allow that into play. And if our opponent turns in our direction, then we are going to have to block here annoyingly. And Adeline playing quite fair here, I think, considering the fast start he got off to, and swinging in at the elf player. See how these human tokens are distributed. And we are going to take 4 damage to the human tokens by the looks of it. The enchantment triggering for the first time is going to draw them a card, and the Mace of the Valiant getting 3 charge counters on it. So now the commander is a 2011. Ezuri decided to take the massive hit there, down to 8 and 20 points of commander damage from the Adeline. Fyndhorn Elder taps for 2 mana, and going to have Ronus's Monument make this thing massive. I doubt it will be enough to take out the Adeline, unfortunately. Only 1 card in the elf player's hand. Okay, there's an Overwhelming Stampede. They could have played their Ezuri for a couple of mana there. Yeah, don't suppose it makes a difference in this case. But that bumps the Heedless one up to a 16-16, the Elvish Champion to an 11-11, so can trade with the Adeline. That's obviously 27 points of damage, so not enough to take out the white player. And then deciding to swing in the Heedless one towards the Ryusei. So we shall see if they decide to block with that and wipe out the Adeline's deck here. Or the Adeline's board. Alright, and amazingly the Elvish Champion, for some reason, swinging in towards us. Would have thought it would be a 3-on-1 in this scenario. So this thing has trample. We're about to lose our commander anyway. We might as well block a little bit of damage there. So all the elves survive, and the Adeline does as well. But the elf player is down to 0 cards in hand. Celestia Signet for the 5-colour player. Alright, and that is a Kolaghan. +1 to power whenever a dragon attacks. And it's noteworthy that this is not for the dash cost, no need to because of the Lightning Greaves. So Kolaghan coming into play, no doubt that that will have Shroud and Haste. Okay, they're going through to the beginning of combat here. So deciding not to equip up with the Lightning Greaves for some reason. And we draw ourselves into a Wheel of Fortune. Unfortunately, it's the white player that's going to benefit from that before anyone else. But now that all the tokens have been dealt with, it might be worth getting down the Saheeli here. So down comes Saheeli. Then after that we have to ping ourselves to a Talisman in order to get down our Mishra once again. And we can make a copy of the Thran Dynamo with the Mishra, as well as turning this into a Thran Dynamo with the Saheeli. And that means that we can get down the Coveted Jewel. Okay, so it's not clear what to choose on Magic Online with this Manus ability. I'm guessing that we target the card that we want to turn into another artifact. So minus down on that. Target the Tezzeret's Gatebreaker first and then target the Thran Dynamo. I'm guessing is the way around that we do it. And yes, that is the correct way to do it. So now the Mishra going to make a copy of the untapped Thran Dynamo. And not going to swing in because that thing doesn't have Vigilance and we do need the 3 mana on it. So casting ourselves a Coveted Jewel, and that will make us a servo token which could help protect us against the Adeline taking the Coveted Jewel away from us. But the elf player's not above swinging in our direction for whatever reason, so could be that we don't keep the Coveted Jewel for very long. Anyway, we draw 3 cards there. There is a Joyra for some more card draw. Just not getting into the spot removal against Adeline, unfortunately. So we could get down Joyra as another blocker. Although getting down a servo with a mana drain or Wheel of Fortune could be just as good. I think holding up mana drain is the thing to do here. A Benalish Marshal is going to bring in a bunch of 2/2 creatures, which is going to be pretty rough for us, but we'll only take 1 at the moment. 1 of the tokens. So yeah, we'll just have to allow that until something really game-ending for us comes into play, because mana drain is the only thing that can prevent that. Triggers Tocassia's Welcome and the Mace of the Valiant, of course. Adeline coming in over here, so this servo token is going to jump in the way of that, and then we will be able to block the token with Mishra as well. Unfortunately, really opens us up to an Ezuri swinging from the Elves player. We'll have to see if there's anything that we need to counter on the mono white player first, because it might have to be Ezuri that we counter with mana drain. Okay, and I think Adeline is broken. These 2 creatures are swinging in at us somehow. Whenever you attack for each opponent, create a 1/1 human token that's tapped and attacking that player or planeswalker they control. So yeah, if this is broken, they shouldn't be playing it like this. It should be 2 damage going over at the Elves and 2 damage at the Dragon player. Yeah, so that changes the outcome of this game potentially. The Coveted Jewel, they are now able to take it from us after playing the Adeline dishonestly. Assuming that they do know it's broken, maybe they don't. So we'll tap it for the 3 blue mana anyway, but we're not going to be able to make use of that during the blocking phase. Yeah, as if Adeline wasn't doing well enough against us. That is totally going to change the outcome of this one. We go down to 19, or 9 I should say. Shouldn't have taken any damage there. Then a Thalia's Lieutenant will put a plus counter on each human. And we don't have the mana drain held up now, which we should. 6 cards left in Adeline's hand, and just holding up the Demolition Field as well as any instants they might have. So here comes Ezuri, Renegade leader. We'll see if they try to go in over at the white player, or if they try and take either of us out. The +3/+3 going on the Heedless one from the Ronas's Monument. What I would have done there is asked my opponent where he's going to swing in here and countered the Ezuri if they are going to swing in at us. Anyway, activating Ezuri once. They'll only be able to do it once here. Okay, but they just decide to scoop anyway. I think they floated a mana there and they had 3 from the Dork. I think they were hoping that they'd be able to activate it again. I don't think it still would have been enough, but regardless, they just decide to quit. Which again can be game warping, because that would maybe force the Adeline to swing in over here and finish them off before they can get some kind of overrun effect on them. Now the one saving grace of Adeline taking the Coveted Jewel away from us is that it might encourage the Kolaghan to go over there to take this, but it might also have been that we could have played the mana drain for a servo and then been able to swing in unblocked at somebody and take the Coveted Jewel. More likely against the Dragon player. Scion of the Ur Dragon into play now, and they can potentially do a combo here. They've got 4 mana available to them to turn Scion of the Ur Dragon into 2 different dragons. Lightning Greaves onto the Scion, and they do activate that for 2 mana. Then adding another activation on the stack. The first dragon we see is Silumgar the Drifting Death, so not any kind of combo we're seeing here. It is a Tarka World Render that it turns into, so double strike on the dragons, and they do swing in here. They'll get +1 on, is it both the dragons? Yeah, so that is an extra 4 points of damage in total here after the double strike. So that's 28 damage in the air, swinging in towards Adeline. And they do take the Coveted Jewel away, so yeah, if they did this to us, they would have taken the Coveted Jewel and then it would have disappeared because they would have killed us anyway, so at least we encouraged our opponent to swing in over there, which hopefully they would have done anyway. Amazingly, Adeline hasn't taken a single point of damage this game. It is 16 points of commander damage that the white player is on as well, so they are at risk of commander damage from the Scion of the Ur Dragon. They just have to put 1 point of power onto that, and then they can fly straight over and get this player next turn. They do get themselves a Dragonlord Servant thanks to the coveted jewel as well. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to take this thing away from them before combat. Haven't done too well this game with the Mishra, unfortunately, but I think it's been an interesting one up against the Adeline, which hasn't seen a single board wipe or really any removal, apart from that Kenrith's transformation. We draw into a Whir of Invention, so we could go for a Wheel of Fortune here. Maybe Whir of Invention for Spine of Isar would be good, but that's 10 mana in total, so yeah, a bit too much of our turn being dumped into that, I think. I do think it just has to be a Wheel of Fortune here, unfortunately, and we'll see what we can get into. We'll drop the Verdant Catacombs. Sure, we're going to draw into another land, but we'll try and make as many servo tokens as we possibly can. Our opponents are on a decent number of cards in hand, so I don't really mind refilling their hands with Wheel of Fortune. Our opponent doing something in response here. That is a Cathar Commando. Looking to blow up something that we're going to do here, I imagine. We're about to discard the mana drain anyway, so yeah, let's crack the Verdant Catacombs and we'll make a blue mana with that and just use our mana drain now. Potentially a waste of 2 mana, but we'll get it back during the next main phase with this, I think. Yeah, we'll get it during the second main. And that obviously makes us another servo token, so Saheeli finally starting to do something. We've just been way too slow compared to the Adeline this game. Noteworthy that they could get their 7th Plains. They probably will play a Plains next turn and then get another activation on that with Sword of the Animist, so the Emeria the Sky Ruin will be likely active next turn. Okay, and that draws us into a Rise and Shine. We haven't made anywhere near enough tokens this game. Rite of Replication could be useful. Probably onto the Kolaghan, that is legendary annoyingly. Our opponents have 7 cards in hand now, so that makes the Jeska's Will much better. So we'll just point the Jeska's Will at the white player. We'll make 7 mana, trigger the Saheeli, and the Jeska's Will going to exile the top 3 cards of our library for us to play as well. Okay, so with that we exile ourselves a Chandra's Ignition. Don't have a creature big enough to get rid of the Adeline, unfortunately. There is a Horde Hauler as well, which is going to make a decent number of treasure tokens, which we might be able to make use of. If we make 5 copies of Benalish Marshals, we're still not going to have creatures big enough for making use of the Chandra's Ignition, I don't think. I think that's about the best we're going to do here, though. We'll cast the Rite of Replication on the Benalish War Marshal. We could go for Horde Hauler here. Make this a copy of the Horde Hauler, swing both of those in at the Dragon player, and get through 4. It will be 5, 6 and 7 if they block with this. So we could go wide on them with the Mishra Eminent one, and then it's just a 1v1 versus the Adeline. I think that's our best bet at this point, because if the Dragon player can take out Adeline next turn, then he can probably take us out as well. And we've got enough for crewing this with the servo tokens as well. So we'll tick down on the Saheeli again and choose the Tezzeret's Gatebreaker as well as the Horde Hauler. Oh, actually that's wrong, isn't it? Because, yeah, we needed it to be animated first. And even if it was, it wouldn't have become a copy of that as a creature. It would have just been a vehicle. Oh well, doesn't matter, I don't think. Crew the original Horde Hauler by tapping down these servos. Mishra can just make a token copy of this thing. Oh, of course, we've animated the wrong version as well. We should have animated this one because that one doesn't need haste, whereas this one does. It's really irritating. So let's go for the Doretti Scrap Savant, making another servo token. Then we will go for draw and discard, so get rid of the Furnace and the Vehicle. Okay, draws us into Solemn and Goblin Engineer. Yeah, so I should be swinging in with 2 Horde Haulers here. Should have animated this one because it doesn't need haste, and they do block with the Dragonlord Servant, so we'll take the coveted jewel, and we'll make, I think it's 2 treasure tokens when we hit. Okay, so we get 2 treasure tokens, And we get the mana drain mana as well. So then overloading the Rite of Replication onto the Benalish War Marshal. Totally goofed up this last turn, but I don't think we ever had any business winning this one anyway. So that bumps our commander up to a 10-9, which still wouldn't have been good enough to get rid of this thing. And we've got a bunch of creatures that we can block the Adeline with now anyway. Yeah, so we're just going to lose to the dragon player basically. So now really the Adeline just swings in over at the dragon player and takes him out, you would think, and holds back as many creatures as possible. If our opponent does go for some kind of board wipe to try and gain some time against us, then we've got the Fierce Guardianship for it. A Gold Knight Commander, that is going to make the tokens really big. Hopefully we've got enough creatures to make blocks here. And there is a Spear of Heliod, another Anthem effect. Destroy a target creature that was dealt damage or has dealt damage to you this turn. I don't think that's going to be particularly relevant. If we deal damage to our opponent next turn, we're looking to Alpha Strike them. Definitely hold on to the Fierce Guardianship for something different. We're just praying that our opponent actually takes out the dragon player next turn, which I think they have to because they are at risk of commander damage. A Mind Stone can draw them into something else if needs be, but they won't have the mana to do anything with it. Okay, so the moment of truth, 4 cards in hand, and Adeline goes through to combat and does not swing in, so maybe trying to encourage the dragon player to take us out so that they can get the dragon player on the swing back. There's some kind of, there's some kind of tactics going on here. Could have a means of removal on the Lightning Greaves into a Swords or something like that, maybe Generous Gift into Solitude. I mean, that would be a hell of a hand, but yeah, they obviously fancy their odds of surviving this. Oh, okay, I see. So, these two are making deals in the chat. Yeah, so it's strangely turned into a 2-on-1. Let's see here. I'll just expand this for you all to read too, but I've just seen at the bottom here, can you allow me to untap so that I can take out the Mishra player in the air, which is what I'm assuming is going to happen. Yeah, pretty crappy way to lose the game. I was hoping that our opponents would actually play it honourably there. Our opponent throws down a couple of Signets. I mean, they've got us in the air here regardless. Now it is Dramoka the Eternal. So that's enough to land commander damage onto the white player. The dragon player should really be looking to take both players out at once here. Okay, so it is the Coligan swings in at us. Looks like the dragon player has successfully politicked his way into potentially winning this one. It will be bolster 2 on each of the dragons, so 2+ counters, and then obviously the buffs from the Coligan as well. If I hadn't screwed up on the Horde Hauler there, then we could have gone wide on our opponent. And yep, our opponent has a Teferi's Protection, so obviously wasn't being too nice to our opponent. Now it's Kingmaker time. Do we have the Adeline player go down, or do we have the dragon player go down? We actually only take 7 at the moment, don't we? Because this thing will jump up to a 4, 5, 6 and 7 powered creature. So we go for Fierce Guardianship onto the Teferi's Protection and have them take out the white player, I think. Make another servo token in the process. Yeah, I think we survive here. So our opponent will go down to commander damage. And, oh, it is an 8 powered creature. So I must have, I must have worked something out wrong there. Oh, it's creatures you control get +1 to their power. I thought it was each dragon, so each trigger on the stack would have been that particular dragon getting a +1, so yeah, well, we were losing either way here after my blunder at the end, but the Adeline player definitely being punished there for not taking out the dragon player while he could. The dragon player definitely politicking in the chat there, and yeah, the white player not taking out a player while he could, definitely being punished for that. Yeah, really goofy last turn or two there. Obviously I made an error, and then the Adeline player made an error as well and lost to the dragons. All Adeline really had to do there was swing in with the commander and take out the dragon player, and then it would have been a 1-on-1, and for all they know, they had enough blockers to go against us, had the Teferi's Protection against us as well, so they would have untapped with their Adeline, making 3 additional blockers of course, and that might have been enough against us. But we had a means of overloading into a bunch of 4/4 creatures as well, so yeah, not sure if we would have made it against the Adeline player or not. Yeah, maybe we could have done, I'm not quite sure. I've been kicked out into the lobby now, so I'm not sure what my hand was exactly. Anyway, hopefully you all enjoyed this revisit to Mishra. Be sure to leave the video a like if you did, it helps with YouTube's algorithms and hopefully pushes this video out to new potential viewers. Huge thank you to the patrons as ever again for their die-hard support. You can support yourself monetarily through the link in the description on Patreon if you would like to. I'm very grateful to you if you do decide to do that. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.